Despite what you've said, that it's the wrong move or the easy move to resort to violence to support and uphold our victory of our God, there's a huge percentage of people that turn to economic and political and social violence to try and justify their God of victory.
Right.
How does that square with our Hebrew Scripture roots and our gospel?
Well, I think that the Old Testament, to some extent the New Testament, but the Old Testament is saturated with violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that the God of the Bible is deeply implicated in this inheritance of violence. And therefore, people who appeal to that they are reading the Bible. I believe that the God of the Bible is a recovering agent of violence, and as in all programs of recovery, you never get over it, and it's always latently there again. And I don't think we conduct that. The usual liberal strategy about violence in the Old Testament is whenever that's attributed to God, well, they just attributed that, it's a human projection, and it's all wrong. But that seems to me too easy. And so I think we are going to deal theologically with the problem of violence forever, because it is intrinsic to our inheritance, and the question for God and the question for all of us who follow this God is whether we can resist that stuff that is intrinsically present in our existence.
And where did Jesus come in and shake that intrinsic violence out?
He is a mutation. He's not the only mutation, but he is the mutation around which we have gathered our lives, that people do break from that. I think you can argue that Hosea was a mutation before Jesus. This whole business about suffering love in Hosea and all of that. The big revelatory moments before Jesus and after Jesus are characteristically departures from what has been taken for granted. And I think you can say that about all of the recent liberation movements of race and gender and all of that. They are departures from what has been taken for granted.
Departures in what way?
Well, in every dimension, a departure intellectually of having a new idea, but emotionally, economically. If you just think of feminism, a departure from all of the assumptions of patriarchy. And there is no dimension of our common life that doesn't require a dimension, economics, emotion, everything.
Yeah.
And because it's such a radical departure, you can see the enormous resistance to that movement, and so on. And I think in terms of the gay lesbian revolution, it's the same thing, that to imagine that these are legitimately first-class citizens is a huge departure. I was watching yesterday afternoon a radio preacher, a television preacher who was going on about all these sins, and he said that homosexuality was such a heinous sin that in 19th century biblical commentaries it wasn't even mentioned. You couldn't even name it, and so on. And then to think that somehow someone makes the claim that our faith is requiring us to move in a new direction about that. And I think there is great human imagination and great courage, but eventually those departures can only be explained by the movement of God's Spirit, far beyond all that we can ask or think or imagine.
Beyond the text, beyond tradition, beyond...
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yep.
It's out of control.
That's right. It is. Which is why there is no final reading of the text. We're always going to read it again, and we're going to be led somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which is what keeps us in business.
Absolutely. And PhD topics.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, right.